As a biomedical scientist, what does a workday look like for you?
I learned about the NHS clinical scientist program when I was at university, actually. So in my third year, I attended a careers fair and found out about the training program that they do. And it just really appealed to me because, you're training on the job and obviously working in diagnostics, you're making real different patients as well. So days are busy. There's lots of workload to get through. So we're receiving, a high volume of samples every day, and we're processing them in the laboratory space and then analysing them with a range of different techniques and then reporting those results out. And then obviously alongside all of that day-to-day kind of throughput work, there's keeping abreast of recent changes. There's always new studies coming out in the literature to be aware of, and all the other kind of admin and other aspects that go with the role as well.
What makes work in cytogenetics so interesting?
So in cytogenetics, we look at the structure of chromosomes and how changes in the chromosome content or location of material leads to genetic disorders. So in my laboratory, we look for changes that have occurred spontaneously, and these can lead to a hematological disorder. And by finding these abnormalities, it helps us to both diagnose the type of disorder and also guide treatment, because it's particular treatments have been designed specifically for those genetic changes. So they're really tailored to exactly what we're looking for.
Why don't more people pursue biomedical science careers?
I think actually in recent years, it now is a very competitive field. So I know that the training programs that we have are, very highly subscribed. But you're right, it can still be a relatively small field. So healthcare scientists only make up about 5% of the total NHS workforce. But the work that's done by healthcare scientists is involved in over 80% of patient diagnosis. So yeah, it's obviously it's an expanding field. There's lots of research going on that's making changes to what we do in diagnostics, and I think that genetic testing is advancing. We're understanding more and more about the genetic changes, and it's being brought into all different fields. So I see the workforce increasing over the years as well.
What's your favorite and least favorite part of your work?
I think my favorite part is the fact that you're always learning. Every day there is something new to learn. It can never be accused of being a boring field to go into. So, like I said, there's new discoveries being made all the time, and the pace of change is quite rapid. In the technology that we're using and how we perform that testing, and always being able to look for the next thing that's going to benefit patients. uh, if I had to have a least favorite, I guess, as I've alluded to, the workload can be quite challenging sometimes. um, I think in the NHS as a whole, obviously the last 2 years have been challenging, maintaining our resources against the testing that we must perform, constantly. So yeah, I think it's just having that juggling act of the workload and everything that you need to do on a daily basis. But there's never a dull moment, so it's not too bad.
What's the most interesting thing you've experienced in your career?
I think one of the most interesting would be something that I came across in my training program. So I was involved in looking at the pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So this is where embryos are investigated at the day 8 stage, from parents who've got a known genetic abnormality, and a cell is removed from the embryos in order for the genetic content to be looked at. And with the overall aim of helping those parents have a successful pregnancy. So I found, although it's not what I do day to day, I found that a really fascinating part of my training. Actually seeing the embryo and the cell being taken out of it for that testing is really quite extraordinary.
What one key thing would you like to share about what you do?
I think it's the fact that, the work that we do is helping more patients survive blood cancers every day. So every analysis that we do, every sample that we receive, has the potential to both diagnose the type of blood cancer and also guide treatments for those patients. So it's ultimately allowing them to live longer and beat cancer. So, and sometimes, you remind yourself of that every day, and it really is quite amazing. So I do feel very fortunate to be in the field.